Okay, well, hopefully this background noise of the airport does not disturb you guys because they are hot and bothered right now because they're boarding planes. So I thank you for joining us today, and I'm joining you via Durham, North Carolina's airport. And this is day three or week three of our Wisdom Wednesday series. We have an amazing guest, and we cannot wait to introduce to you this guest again. I want you guys to be reminded that we will have a special session from 1 to 1:30 to provide a Q&A with our speaker. But don't forget to post your questions to the chat, and one of our committee members will keep their eye out for the chat. And also don't forget to complete the evaluation at the end, and we will make sure we share the link in the chat. I am Danielle Harrison Green. I'm the chairperson for the African American Black Employees Resource Group. I'm also the Institute Director for the Human Development and Relationships Institute with UW-Madison Division of Extension. I do want to take a moment to reflect on this day in Black history. Benjamin Oliver Davis Sr. He became the first African American general in the United States Army on October 25th, 1940. General Davis was born in Washington, D.C. on July 1, 1877. Davis attended Howard University, the same university as your guest presenter, and later, after the beginning of the Spanish-American War, joined the military on July 13th, 1898, and became a temporary first lieutenant in the All-African American 8th United States Volunteer Infantry Unit. In March of 1899, Davis was mustered out to the volunteer service and later re-enlisted in the regular Army as a private in the Buffalo Soldiers 9th Cavalry Regiment in June of 1899. He was commissioned as a second lieutenant on February the 2nd, 1901. The rest is really history. Davis moved upward in the military to become the first African American general in the Army. He participated in the Spanish-American War, the Philippine-American War, World War I, and World War II. As a soldier, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Medal, the Bronze Star, the Croix de Guerre with Palm from France, and the Star of Africa from Liberia. Davis also served as a professor of military science and tactics at Wilberforce University and Tuskegee Institute, which are historically Black colleges and universities. His son, Benjamin Davis Jr., became the first African American general in the United States Air Force. General Davis died on November 26, 1970, in Chicago, Illinois, at age 93. If you would like to learn more information about General Davis, please feel free to visit our AABERG site. Thank you for sharing your lunch hour with the African American Black Employees Resource Group, affectionately known as AABERG. The purpose is to serve as a resource for and foster current and future African American colleague success by sponsoring programming, providing collegial support, encouraging belonging, and raising a collective voice related to issues that impact employees' ability to thrive personally and professionally. I would like to acknowledge our committee members, Rhonda, or committee leadership, Rhonda Davis, our co-chair, Quintella Perry, our secretary, Catherine Borg-Smock, our treasurer, James Bowling and Eva Terry, the co-chairs of Membership and Retention Committee, Carla Williams, the chair of Marketing and Media, and Cheryl Isabel, chair of the Professional Development Committee. I'm super excited to introduce to you Ms. Dominique Green, who will present today the second or the third of our 3 sessions, Connecting Culture to Marketing, Amplifying DEI with Internal and External Communications. An amazing discussion that aims to equip professionals with the essential skills to understand, resonate with, and authentically engage diverse audiences. Meet Dominique Green, the brains behind Dom G Creative Agency, and a graduate who knows how to turn the tassel in style. She rocked the cap and gown at Howard University, the ultimate historically Black college, with summa cum laude honors in 2021. And that's how you do it. But wait, Dominique isn't your average overachiever. She kicked off her entrepreneurial journey at the tender age of 15. By 16, she was already strutting her stuff as one of Houston's top 100 young professionals. Move over high school drama. Dominique was too busy making moves. She's no stranger to the big leagues, having worked her magic as a marketing and communication whiz for heavy hitters like Gucci, Tinder, Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting, University of Minnesota, Boynton Health, and the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. Yep, she's practically a rock star in the professional world. And most importantly, she is my daughter. Now, Dominique is the heart and soul of Dom G Creative Agency, a Black owned and operated creative powerhouse that spans the entire United States. Their mission to bridge the gap between people and technology while turning dreams into reality. If you thought the impossible was off the table, think again. Dominique is here to prove you wrong with a smile on her face and creativity in her mind. To review her full bio, please visit AABERG's SharePoint site. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Miss Dominique Green.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks again for coming to see my face for the third time. It is super cold outside now in Madison. I'm not sure how you guys do this, but I am struggling with this 60-degree weather, but I'm trying to make it through. So I'm gonna share my screen here. All right, 1 second. Boom, cool. So, let me make sure. Can you guys see my screen? I said my screen sharing is paused, but I'm not sure if you can see it or not. Just give me a quick thumbs up. Cool, thanks. So this is the third session for the Connecting Culture to Marketing Workshop Series, and today's session is Amplifying DEI with Internal Communications. So throughout this entire series, we've been talking about external communications. We've been talking about how to keep ourselves culturally aware and educated. And now we're bringing both of those things together and applying them to our internal communications within our workplace. So of course, before we hop in, I'm gonna go over my agenda pretty quickly. So first, we're gonna do quick recaps from sessions 1 and 2. So if you attended session 1 but missed 2, if you attended session 2 but need refresher on session 1, or if this is your first session period and you just need a refresher overall, we're going to give that to you pretty quickly before we dive into our presentation for today. After we do that, we'll be talking about how internal communications can advance DEI efforts within the workplace. And then we're going to talk about methods to advance DEI with internal marketing communications. And then closing out, of course, as always, with our Q&A. Today's session is going to be heavily based on discussion. So after we do our recap and do a couple slides on what internal communications is, please feel free to engage with me. Unmute yourselves, put yourselves in the chat, give thumbs up, reactions, whatever you want to do. But this is going to be a heavy discussion session today. And of course, once again, this is me. My hair is different and I got new glasses and I don't have my makeup on, but I promise you, this is me. I am your facilitator, Dominique, Dom Green, whatever you want to call me today. And I'm just happy to be here for the third time and give you guys some great insights on internal communications.
I don't think the slides are advancing. You might want to unshare and share.
Let me see here. Stop sharing. It's me and Zoom, as always. Okay, can we see this?
Yes, I can see.
Yes. Okay, cool. Thanks for pointing that out. Zoom doesn't really like me a lot of times, so we're having relationship problems right now. But let's dive in. This is the picture I was talking about, but we're gonna dive into our recap. So, of course, the first thing we talked about together was what cultural diversity is, which is the inclusion and recognition of various cultural backgrounds, beliefs, values, traditions, and lifestyles within marketing strategies, campaigns, and communications. And then after we did that, we said, what is a marketing group versus a target audience? So a marketing group is a broad category of the market, while a target audience is a specific subset within that group. Then we said, what is inclusive marketing, which is a strategic approach that aims to create advertising and promotional materials that resonate with a diverse audience, regardless of their background, identity, or characteristics. Then discriminatory marketing, also known as exclusionary marketing, involves practices that intentionally or unintentionally exclude or target specific groups of people based on characteristics such as race, gender, ethnicity, age, religion, ability, or other protected attributes. Then we talked about understanding social and cultural issues, which refers to concerns, challenges, and discussions that arise from the interactions, beliefs, and practices of various social and cultural groups within a society. Inclusive language, which is language that avoids assumptions about gender, race, ethnicity, age, ability, and other characteristics, which seeks to promote equality, respect, and diversity. Accessibility in marketing, referring to the design and implementation of marketing materials that can be easily accessed, understood, and used by individuals of all abilities, including those with disabilities. And then lastly, we talked about building a diverse online community, which is crucial for creating an inclusive and welcoming space where individuals from various backgrounds feel valued and heard. And with this topic, we also dived into the social media aspects of that. So how to build that diverse social media community using all the things that we learned in both session 1 and the beginning of session 2. So that's just a quick brief recap of some of the key points we talked about in the first 2 sessions. We had some quizzes and polls, some scenarios that we worked with, but we'll have those same opportunities today within this session to learn more about internal communications. Like I said earlier, this presentation is going to be heavy on discussion. So after I do my first couple of slides, feel free to unmute yourselves, put yourselves in the chat, give your feedback and opinions on the scenarios and case studies that we'll be reviewing. So let's dive into it. What is internal communications, right? We've been talking about external communications, so let's talk about it internally. Internal communications are a cornerstone in driving DEI within our organization. Firstly, internal communications refers to the processes and channels that facilitate communication and information flow within an organization. In the context of DEI, they play a crucial role in creating an inclusive work environment. They enable the dissemination of DEI-related messages, policies, and initiatives to all employees, fostering a sense of belonging and understanding. Internal communications has various methods, right? We have emails that we check every single day. So every time you get a new Gmail notification, that is a method of internal communications. Newsletters that are put out by different colleges, different entities, different groups in our workplaces is a method of internal communications. Meetings, when we're meeting, whether with our department, with just our colleagues, with other entities on campus, those are methods of internal communications. Some workplaces also have digital platforms where you can effectively communicate internally with programs like Slack. Some people use the Zoom chat, some people use Teams. These are all methods of internal communications. They can vary from the digital aspects to the in-person meetings. It also relates to posters and flyers that are distributed throughout a workplace. There's so many different ways to communicate internally, just like there's so many different ways to communicate externally. So internal communications, like I said, it plays that pivotal role It fosters an inclusive work culture. So this means creating an environment where everyone feels a sense of belonging. It encourages open communication and welcomes diverse perspectives, ultimately driving innovation and understanding. That kind of speaks for itself. The way that we speak to one another as colleagues, even the way we speak to leadership, it plays into that inclusive feeling of a workplace. If you're in consistent conversation with your supervisor and the conversation always feels tense and you feel like you've been just singled out all the time, or you feel like certain things are only said to you because of how you look or how you present yourself, that matters, right? So we really want to be careful on how we speak to one another. Secondly, it ensures our organizational values are aligned with our DEI goals. Through effective internal communications, we can make certain that every employee understands and embraces the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This reinforcement further solidifies our commitment to diversity and inclusivity. When we think about, our organizational values, it's really important to look at what the DEI efforts are for an organization as a whole, and then look at what those efforts are within our departments and within our specific areas of specialty. Some people, in these moments realize that maybe the spaces that they work for don't really have DEI goals. They don't really have action items. And when people get to that place, it's really important to kind of put pause on everything. You can't really have advanced DEI efforts internally or externally if you don't have those set goals and principles for your organization. And lastly, it's a powerful tool for amplifying our DEI message. So by effectively communicating our DEI initiatives and progress, we can engage employees on a deeper level. This strengthens their connection to the organization's DEI mission and creates a collective drive towards positive change. So it's really important that all employees are on the same page when it comes to DEI messaging. The only way that we can be effective in our DEI efforts is if everyone is driving that force. It can't just be one a set group of employees that are trying their best to make sure that everything aligns with DEI. It has to be a group collective effort, or it's just not going to work, simply. So now that we kind of understand these three main points here, let's explore some methods to put these principles into action with our internal marketing efforts. So here are a couple examples of effective internal communication strategies. These are just a few examples. There's so many different strategies that could be implemented, but these are just the 4 main focus points for today. So first, we have inclusivity-driven messaging. So crafting communications that highlight the value of diversity and inclusivity in our workplace. These messages should be clear, compelling, and resonate with our employees. Once again, this is highlighting the value of diversity and inclusivity. Sometimes we do DEI efforts and, it's just like, hey, like, we're inclusive. Hey, we have people who look different. Hey, we have people from different backgrounds. But it's really, really important to make sure that you're noting why it's important, that we're doing this. What's the significance of being diverse? Why is it important? Why does it matter? So making sure you also include those points in your messaging is really, really important. And then we have employee resource groups and forums, which is AABERG, right? That's a great example of an employee resource group and forum. These groups and forums establish platforms for employees to connect, share experiences, and discuss DEI topics. These groups provide a space for open dialogue and collaboration. And in more familiar terms, it provides a safe space for people to just talk about their concerns, talk about, things that may be bothering them in the workplace, or maybe talk about things that have been working very well for them in the workplace. But these these groups, these resource groups and forums are super, super important in making employees and staff feel included in everyday activity. Without these resource groups, it's really hard to kind of gauge what your employees need. Everybody doesn't have this a blanket statement for them, right? Everybody doesn't need the exact same thing, depending on your background, depending on your ethnicity, depending on your abilities, depending on literally so many things that it could depend on. It determines what you need from your workplace. And that's why these employee resource groups and forums are really important, not just to support those people, but also to educate other people. So if we have an African American and Black employee resource group, obviously not everybody in that resource group is going to be of color. It's important to have non-people of color in that group as well, to get them to understand how you're feeling as a person of color in the workplace. Then we have DEI focused trainings and workshops. So conducting training sessions that educate employees on DEI principles, unconscious bias, and inclusive practices. These programs promote awareness and understanding. While this is a really, really important point, sometimes the trainings and workshops aren't executed in the best way, right? So, a lot of organizations may have that annual mandatory training that you have to log into, like maybe Canvas or whatever, platforms you use. And, you're listening to this monotone person just talk, and then you answer the quizzes, and then you get a certificate, and then you don't talk about DEI for a whole other year, right? Because it's not mandatory after that. That's not effective, right? We want to make sure that these are continuous conversations that are being had. So while the mandatory online training may be great, DEI is really a conversation. It's not a quiz, it's not an exam, it's not a lecture, it's a discussion. So having trainings and workshops where employees are all in one space, whether it's virtual or in person, but providing that space of open and transparent communication, giving employees the opportunity to ask those hard questions, ask questions that they may feel uncomfortable asking, but they need the answer to. These trainings are really, really important. For example, at a previous role I was in, we had an all staff day, and a part of that staff day, we had a organization come in that specialized in going into all white spaces and educating them on DEI efforts. And it was a really cool and engaging session because we're all in this really big room. It's about 100 employees, and the entire hour and a half, we're just passing the mic, talking about, our different experiences, not just within the workplace, but just in life in general, because those things matter. So those DEI focused training and workshops are always going to be a really, really crucial piece when it comes to effective internal communication strategies. And then lastly, we have feedback mechanisms for DEI initiatives. So implementing channels for employees to provide feedback on our DEI efforts. This two-way communication ensures that initiatives are responsive to the needs and perspectives of our diverse workforce. Once again, this is two-way communication. An example that I can share from a previous role I had was we were on Zoom just like this, and we were put in breakout rooms to kind of talk about all the things that we wanted to see change as far as our DEI efforts, how we could feel more included and heard in our workplace. And we come back from the breakout sessions, and we were told that we don't have enough time to go through everything, so everybody just send your responses in an email, and then we'll get back to you. And that was it. There was never a discussion about what we talked about. People are in their breakout rooms crying. People are, just having these very emotional moments, talking about the things that they've been experiencing, and it kind of was just tossed in the wind. So this is a two-way communication. So if employees are giving you this feedback, it is your job to then take that feedback and apply it. See what you can do to improve the work environment as a whole. even with, these presentations with AABERG, at the end, they're providing those surveys. They're looking at those surveys and the responses. And my assumption, since I'm not an AABERG, but my assumption is that those surveys are then taken, you're looking at the results of that and then applying them in future efforts. What can we do to improve in the future? What should we keep the same? Feedback is such an important thing to have in all aspects of work and just everything in general, but especially when it comes to internal communication strategies. So by leveraging these strategies, we can effectively utilize internal communications to advance our DEI goals and create a workplace that embraces diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's just a quick overview of internal communications. We've talked in the last 2 sessions a lot of the details when it just comes to communications in general, and those same things can be applied internally, right? Using inclusive language is always something that we're going to have to do. Making sure that the messaging is respectful, making sure that we're continuously representing multiple groups of people, and making sure that our target audiences can resonate, with the messages that we're sharing. Those same things apply, internally. I think sometimes when we think about internal communications, or sometimes we just don't think about internal communications at all, because we're so focused on that external. We're so focused on, engaging our audiences and engaging our communities. And that's great. And that's really, really important. But we can't effectively reach our external audience if the internal isn't where it needs to be. So you know how they always say, work on yourself from the inside then out, or something like that. It's kind of the same situation here, and in order to be effective on the outside, you have to be effective on the inside first. So that's just a couple of things I wanted to go over first. And like I said, the rest of this discussion is really, or presentation is really discussion based. So the next thing that I'm going to go into is some activities. First, we're going to start with our case studies, and then we're going to transition into like our quiz that I usually do because I like to quiz people because it's fun. But our case studies is really going to show you how communication strategies and how effective communication strategies really impact us internally when we're thinking about our DEI. And both of the case studies are related to extension. With all the knowledge that I have of extension, so I hope you guys are able to kind of apply the things that show up on the screen. Okay, so our first case study that we'll be looking at today is called Unity in Extension. So the background of this is that the University of Wisconsin-Madison's Division of Extension recognized the critical importance of fostering a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion within its ranks. Understanding that a diverse and inclusive workforce drives innovation and effectiveness, the division embarked on the Unity in Extension initiative. Just a sidebar, if you guys decide to do a Unity and Extension initiative, just give me name credits. That's all I ask for. The primary goal of Unity and Extension was to create an environment where every member of the division felt valued, respected, and empowered to contribute their unique perspectives and skills. So my questions for you all, and of course, you can drop this in the chat, unmute yourself, communicate however you want to. What are some internal communication strategies that can be implemented or that have already been implemented that could support the Unity and Extension initiative? So these can be strategies that you think should be implemented at Extension now that could help something like this, or they could be things that are already in place. So if there's already some sort of initiative or some sort of strategy that's been put in place that you've witnessed that could help drive this Unity and Extension initiative, feel free to mention that as well. Some of the examples that you can think of are what we already talked about. So what kind of inclusive messaging, could be implemented? What kind of employee resource groups and forums? What kind of DEI focus trainings and workshops, feedbacks? There's so many different examples that you guys could probably pull from. But what are some strategies that could be implemented to support this initiative? Okay, Jonathan says possibly focus groups to gather feedback with intentionally selected facilitators. That's a great one. Focus groups are always really good, just in general when it comes to marketing communications, because it's a focus group. So you get to focus on something and really delve into the details of what that person or those group of people may need. And then intentionally selecting facilitators are really important as well. Sometimes we have great topics, but we may not have the best facilitator to do it. Monica says, involve a wide range of stakeholders from around the state in planning and implementing the initiative. Right, because that brings different perspectives, right? That's a form of diversity. So involving people from around the state, which means they're coming from different communities and different backgrounds, could really help, drive the initiative home. And across institutes, right? Thanks for that, Rachel. So there's so many things, that could be implemented here. There's really no wrong answer with this. Internal listening sessions with external facilitators, absolutely. Review historical content to anticipate strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Yes, that was actually a really great one that I didn't even think of, so that was awesome. But yeah, so like I said, there's so many types of strategies that we could implement. So I'm just going to share some of the ideas that I came up with. Some things that I think, could benefit this initiative at Extension as someone who's non-Extension. So first, those diverse task forces, right? So we talked about the groups and forums. So if the division establishes task forces focused on various aspects of diversity, including race, gender, ability, and generational differences, these task forces can provide recommendations and actionable strategies to advance DEI within the organization. Then we have the inclusive training and development. So this could be programs with workshops on unconscious bias, inclusive leadership, and culturally sensitive communication. And then culturally relevant programming. So ensuring that the division's programs and services are addressing the needs and perspective of all communities it serves. This involves actively seeking input from diverse stakeholders, which was already mentioned today, and tailoring outreach efforts to be culturally relevant, right? So what are the positive, outcomes, right, of this type of initiative? So you have heightened employee morale. So the Unity and Extension initiative can lead to a noticeable increase in morale among staff who reported feeling more connected to the division's missions and values. I think that speaks for itself. If I'm someone, or I am someone of color, and I'm working, in Extension, and I see something like this being implemented on various levels, I'm going to feel more excited to be at work because now I feel more seen. I feel like, my opinion matters, my voice matters, the work that I do matters. So it definitely can, increase that morale. It would strengthen community relationships. So by embracing inclusivity, the division can build stronger relationships with diverse communities it serves, resulting in more effective and impactful programs. Just think about, maybe the counties that you serve or the different communities that you've been in, and think about, well, if I know that I'm participating in DEI efforts and I'm making sure that I'm educating myself on different cultural awareness strategies, when I go into these communities and I'm talking to the people that we're serving, they're going to see that effort, right? Just by how you're talking to them, just by the type of conversation that you're having and the care that you're showing. So strengthening those community relationships is definitely an upside. And then lastly, recognition and awards, right? So recognitions and awards is, no, I didn't change my slide. I'm sorry, I'm just chatting right now. So recognitions and awards is probably going to be like the least important here, because we shouldn't do anything with a goal of becoming award winning. That comes off as very performative. However, if you're doing the work and it's showing, you'll get an award for it, right? Like that's just how those things work. So, receiving recognition from external organizations for exemplary efforts, and promoting DEI efforts, it's always a great thing, and it's always a plus side, but it also should not be the focus. So I do want to make that very, very, very clear. I've chatted a lot about this, but the initiative can really exemplify the positive impact that intentional efforts towards DEI can have on an organization, through the establishment of all the things that you guys have put in the chat and the ideas that I've shared. The initiative will be more than effective. So this is just more so a broad case study. I just wanted to kind of pick your brains and see, what you guys thought about this. But the next case study is a bit more detailed, and it relates to county educators, which I would assume that you guys are very familiar with. So I'm going to go to that slide. All right, so the next case study, fostering diversity in county educator roles through internal communications. So University of Wisconsin-Madison Extension recognizes the importance of fostering diversity in county educator roles to better serve the diverse communities they engage with. They aim to attract a wider range of candidates through strategic internal communications. The primary objective was to improve internal communications to attract a diverse pool of candidates for county educator positions and ensure a fair and inclusive hiring process. So what are some internal communication strategies that can be implemented that can help recruit a diverse pool of internal candidates? And by internal candidates, I mean candidates just at UW as a whole, not just an extension, not just in a specific college, but throughout the university as a whole. So these can be new strategies, or they can be strategies that have already been implemented that you think could really help with this. So once again, the question is, what are some internal communication strategies that can be implemented that can help recruit a diverse pool of internal candidates for county educator roles? And feel free to hop in the chat, unmute yourself. It's okay to unmute yourself. I know some people are probably tired of hearing my voice for these past couple of weeks, so feel free to just chat away.
I struggle with this because I wish we had more diverse pool. But having images of diverse staff, as well as having diverse audiences for programming, I think would help.
Absolutely. I think, it can always be a struggle trying to be more diverse, especially with hiring processes. But the first step and one of the easiest steps you can take is pictures, right? Making sure that in the promotional and advertising materials, it looks diverse, so that you can communicate that the importance of that and that you guys are dedicated that and really want to be more diverse. Let's see, Megan says, celebrating existing diversity of people and programming online platforms like LinkedIn to connect with job seekers. Great one. From Jonathan, strategic recruitment with UW students through their academic departments. For example, partnering with family and child studies departments and student groups to inform their students of extension county educator opportunities. That's actually a really good one, Jonathan. And I will say that a lot of students, if they knew, I'm pretty sure students knew more about it and had like more context, they would be more interested in this type of work. When I was first introduced to extension, I was like, I don't know what this is. I know what 4-H is, and they think that's pretty much it. But once you learn more and you learn about the importance and the impact of the community, sharing those impact stories with students will really go a long way, especially with me, because I love stories. All right, next one. Do you recommend posting photos of future aspirations or recommend honest photos of predominantly white spaces to not be misled? That is a great question. What I will say is that I recommend when it's situations like that, I don't recommend stock photos. I'll start there, right? When you're trying to communicate the diversity efforts, don't go on pexels.com and pull a picture of an all Hispanic group of people, knowing that that's not what is represented right now at the university. You don't really want to mislead people, but you could take that extra step and maybe just do your own collection of stock photos, right? Within extension. So even if it's not as diverse as you want it to be, there are some people of color that work there, right? So maybe taking those pictures on your own, getting a couple staff members just to come together to take pictures. What you don't want to do is send a blast email out like, hey, staff members of color, can you please come outside and take a picture for our diversity? No, don't do that, because nobody's going to show up to that. But if you just say, hey, like, we're trying to do some more, get some more marketing promotional campaigns, you want to accurately reflect the people who work here, let's do an all staff photo shoot, right? Those are those pictures, you know, where you're on Google and it's like the camera's up here and everybody's pointing to the camera, like those type of corny pictures. You know, take stuff like that, you know, take your own pictures to accurately represent who's working here. And even if it only shows maybe 2 people of color, you're still reflecting that there's some sort of diversity there. It may not be your goal, you may not be where you want to be, but at least you're showing that you're making that effort to be more diverse. So I think that would be my best advice on that. That is a tricky situation. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend using, you know, any of those stock or stage photos from online. Let's see here. If I was just to make sure. So yes, you don't want to tokenize and you don't want to misrepresent this space. Those are really important things to be aware of when you're thinking about stuff like this. And like I said earlier, whenever you're doing anything that's related to DEI in your marketing initiatives, it's important to also state, you know, in the actual message, the importance of it, why DEI is important to your organization, why it's effective for your organization. So just in case you do have that picture that has about 10 white staff members, 1 Black person, 1 Asian person, and 1 Hispanic person, at least in your messaging, you're clearly communicating why you're trying to be diverse, why it's important to this organization, and what impact it can make. Oh, also no AI photos. That's a big thing that's going on right now. Using those AI photos are never a good look because you're completely, it's misleading 100%. And some people forget to crop the hands out, and you know the hands looking really deformed because it's AI and it starts looking weird. So yeah, I never recommend using AI for that either. But yeah, are there any other strategies that you guys think can be implemented? If not, I'll kind of dive into some of my ideas that I have. Yes, promoting through BIPOC agencies. That's a great one. And using all those resources that you guys have. You know, so universities have so many resources, but sometimes we forget about them. You know, we don't recognize them. But even just with AABERG, right? If you're trying to be more inclusive in your efforts to get more diverse county educators, you know, send it to AABERG. Hey, like, where can we promote this at to get more people of color to apply, or collaborating with HR, you know, and helping out with that messaging. What is the current perspective on paying people, i.e. modeling? I think that that the opinion on that varies based on, you know, industry. For my industry and specifically, I work in a creative space, so that's always okay for us. We're always staging, modeling, and stuff like that, so it's okay. I think that a lot of people, when it comes to spaces like this, when we're thinking about paying people, they usually, from what I've seen, is usually only happening in the beginning stages of things. So if it's like a new program being initiated and, you know, you haven't had any events yet, or you don't have a full team yet, in those spaces, I've seen that it's okay to pay people to like, model for things. But when we're thinking about DEI and recruiting for roles specifically, no. And that's just my personal opinion. I don't think there is an actual right or wrong answer to it. But in my personal opinion, I don't really think it's okay to pay like models to, pose for hiring like roles that are open. And my main reason for that is it doesn't really feel good as an employee to see marketing and advertising efforts for a role that I'm already in, and they're using people who don't work here and have never touched foot on the campus or have never, worked in the communities that are being served. So yeah, it can get a little slightly offensive when it's done from a hiring perspective. It almost feels like, were we not good enough to be in the marketing and promotion for the role that we're already in? Let's see, Megan says, as a comm specialist in Extension, we don't really do it, minus 4-H national shoots. Yeah, that would make more sense. Does anyone remember a scandal related to this topic years ago when a student was photoshopped in an admissions brochure? I hope somebody does so that I can learn more about this. Wow.
Yeah, it was at UW-Madison.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
like, so was it like
They
obvious Photoshop?
It was a Photoshop of a young Black man in the middle of a white crowd, from what I remember.
That's interesting. Wow. And these are things that we want to steer away from. And if you are going to Photoshop somebody in, make it a good Photoshop job. Okay? Make sure it's done by a Photoshop expert, because it will be caught very, very easily. If not, I've seen that a lot, just like within the music industry, which is completely separate. But sometimes artists will perform for a crowd that's really, really small. So they'll get their photo editor to copy and paste that same crowd multiple times. And you can tell because it's like the same person over and over again in the audience, and it looks kind of crazy. But yeah, don't ever take that route. It's never a safe route. Even if you think it's a great Photoshop job, it's probably not, someone's going to notice that. So yeah, do your best to stay away from Photoshop in these situations. It was happened in 2000. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense that would have happened in 2000, because back in that time frame, people didn't really put that much effort into DEI, so they kind of were just doing whatever just to say they did something. But that's a really interesting scenario, and thanks for bringing that up, because I love hearing about stuff like that. Not that it's a good thing, I just like hearing things like that. But thanks for your feedback. Thanks for the conversation. So I'm going to, close out this case study with some of my ideas. So first we have inclusive messaging. So, internal communications teams can work closely with HR to craft inclusive messaging that emphasizes the organization's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So with this, this is something that I'm really passionate about. And sometimes I wish I worked in HR so I could help with these initiatives. But the language that we use in job descriptions will really determine who applies for it. A couple days ago, I actually learned what it meant to be a junior level employee. And in my eyes, when it's not specified, we're thinking as college graduates, recent college graduates, juniors, like maybe 3 to 5 years of experience, right? But there was a workshop with some recruiters, and they were like, no, like that could be 2 years, of experience, and entry level is just 0 to 1, right? So being specific, right? You can't say, oh, we want somebody with senior level experience or mid-level experience. Say exactly how many years, right? So the language that we use can really deter somebody from applying to a job. Then we have employee resource groups, so actively engaging the campaign with the resource groups. providing insights on effective communication channels and helping spread the message within the organization. Diverse representation and campaign material, right? So we just talked about the pictures, not photoshopping the pictures, right? I want everybody to remember that part, and using actual real images of people that reflect our organization. And then current county educators sharing employee testimonials. So marketing and communications right now is really, really big on storytelling. Like that is one of the most important things right now when it comes to marketing and communications. So think about having your county educators share their experience and emphasize the organization's dedication to DEI, creating that sense of belonging for potential candidates. This could be through blogs, this could be through video content, this could be through a plethora of things, right? So those are a couple ideas that I have. And just quickly, the positive outcomes of this would be increased interest in applications, enhanced employee engagement, and then positive feedback from employees. I'm at my 5-minute mark. So I'm gonna try to wrap this up real quickly for you guys. I have a quick quiz. I'm just gonna throw the poll out for my next question. Let's see here. Can I? Okay, so this is a quick quiz I'm gonna have you guys answer before I wrap up my time here. I don't want to go over too much, but if someone who is a host or co-host could start the quiz for, it should be labeled as session 3, question 1. Or it's like it's a poll. Thank you. All right, so the first question is, your organization is launching a new DEI initiative. You need to create an internal message that encourages all employees to actively participate and contribute their unique perspectives. So which of the following messages are the best to use in the email subject line announcing this initiative? This is for the email subject line, not the body of the message. There's too short for the body, so just put the subject line. Right. Cool. 36. Give it a couple more seconds before I end this. All right, cool. I'm gonna end it now. All right, so thanks for you guys' participation on that. And the answer to this question was C. Your unique perspective matters. Join us in shaping our DEI efforts. So 95% of you guys rocked it out. 5% picked another one that wasn't a bad option, but it wasn't the best one. And that was let's all do our part for diversity and inclusion. It doesn't really make me feel like I want to engage with it. It's just like, hey, do your part, be inclusive and be diverse, right? But with answer C, your unique perspective matters. Join us in shaping our DEI efforts. Now I feel like, okay, my perspective matters. You really want my feedback. You really want me to engage. Now I'm going to open the email and I'm going to see what I can do. So let me stop sharing that. I did have 2 more questions, but I know I'm at my time limit. And I don't want Rhonda to, have to rush through her closing message. So I'm gonna pass this back to her. But I just want to say thank you to everyone for participating in this workshop series. It's been great. I've had a lot of discussion with you guys. You guys have taught me a lot about extension and AABERG. I hope you guys learned a lot about marketing and communications and being culturally aware and inclusive and diverse. If you want to learn more, if you want some more details, definitely check out my social media and my website. I'll put the link to my site in the chat so you can look at some more resources that I'll be sharing sometime this week and on my social media. But in the meantime, I'm going to pass this back to Rhonda so we can get into our Q&A session. And thank you guys once again.
Thank you so much, Dominique. This has been great. Thank you again for spending this amazing hour with us. And on behalf of the AABERG and our colleagues, friends, and partners of the Division of Extension, we hope we can call upon you to continue to engage us in meaningful dialogue in the future. I just realized that I apologize, my camera should be on. Thank you guys. I was again taking my notes. So a few pearls that Danielle shared before she had to leave us was to not be performative in your DEI efforts. And while stock photos are nice and easily accessible, being intentional about gathering our own images organically throughout the year and during programming and events will allow us to build our own stock portfolio. That way we're more authentic in the pictures that we are sharing. And marketing material should be an accurate representation. So if 20% of our participants are Latinx, then 20% of images should represent that. The same as our staff. So again, we thank you. And as a reminder, Ms. Dominique Green's full bio and recording of today's session can be found only on our SharePoint site. We hope that you have enjoyed this 3-part Wisdom Wednesday series. Thank you to everyone who joined this live session today. And to those who will be watching the recording, thank you for taking the time to watch this phenomenal discussion as well. Just a reminder for those planning to stay logged on to have a more intimate Q&A with Dominique, hold on tight. Otherwise, we'd like to wish you all a wonderful afternoon, and we hope that you'll consider joining us for future AABERG sponsored opportunities. Thank you again.